hit that like button and subscribe.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We have a stack of sources on the table today that I didn't really expect to be looking at.
Yeah, this is a bit of a left turn for us,
A
huh?
huge left turn. Usually we are wading through, supply chain logistics or geopolitical strategy or maybe the latest in neuroplasticity. We deal in hard facts, data.
Right.
But today, we are looking at a story, a piece of fiction.
It is a departure.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, when you sent this over, I looked at the title, The Geometry of a Relationship. And I rolled my eyes a little.
Oh, me too. 100%.
I thought, okay, here we go. It's going to be a whole story of just like bad math puns, your acute angle, or I like your hypotenuse, that sort of thing.
We all went through that phase in high school geometry.
Exactly. I thought it was going to be fluff. But then I actually sat down with the source text, this narrative case study, and I realized, oh, no, this isn't just a joke. Or I should say, it is a joke. But it's a joke that's hiding this really profound psychological profile. It's basically a case study on compatibility, just masquerading as a math problem.
That's the hook right there. Math is a language for love. And like you said, we're not analyzing a scientific paper today. We're analyzing a narrative. But the premise is just so wild it works.
It really does.
The core concept is, what happens when a linear person, this guy named Dave, who just loves straight lines and checking boxes, what happens when he dates an irrational number?
And not irrational in the, my partner is being unreasonable sense?
No. Dave probably wishes it were that simple.
Right. You can argue with unreasonable people.
We mean literally the mathematical constant pi, 3.14159 and so on forever. An infinite, non-repeating decimal in human form.
And to make it even better, they are in couples therapy.
Of course they are.
But the therapist isn't Dr. Phil. The therapist's name is Dr. Euclidia.
Which is just, it's perfect naming. It's so good.
It is. So you've got this perfect triad, the strict, rule-based doctor, the linear boyfriend, and the infinite girlfriend.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We aren't just going to retell the funny bits, the puns. Our goal is to really read through this story and pull out the philosophical and psychological nuggets that are hidden inside all the geometry.
Because underneath all that wordplay about triangles and tangents, this text is exploring a really fundamental tension. I think it's a tension we all feel.
Yes,
it's the tension between the finite and the infinite.
Okay, let's break that down before we even get into the story itself.
Yeah.
When you say the finite versus the infinite, in a relationship context, what are we actually talking about?
Well, we're talking about the battle between two really fundamental human needs. On one side, you have the finite. That's our need for closure, for order, for checking things off a list. It's that deep satisfaction of finishing a project. The safety of a schedule. That is the Dave energy in all of us.
Let's get this done energy.
Exactly. But then on the other side, you have the infinite. And that's our need for truth, for expansion, for the messy, beautiful, complicated reality of life. It's the part of us that asks why instead of when.
Oh, that's good.
It's the part that wants to explore, even if it means getting a little lost. And that is the pi energy. We all have both of these, but you rarely see them so perfectly personified as you do in this story.
It's the constant battle between, let's just put this to bed, and, but wait, what does it all mean?
Precisely. And if you've ever been in a relationship or, even just a close friendship, you know that exact friction. You feel it.
Okay, so let's set the scene. We're walking into Dr. Euclidia's office for the first time. The text gives us this very specific, very visual description. What are we looking at?
We are looking at a space that is, and this is the direct quote, terrifyingly organized.
I love that phrase.
It's so good, isn't it? Terrifyingly organized. Everything's aligned at perfect 90-degree angles. The books on her shelf, you just know, they aren't just organized by author. They're probably organized by height to maintain a perfect horizontal line.
I can just picture the smell of this room, It smells like rubbing alcohol and like fresh graph paper.
It probably does. And the doctor herself, Dr. Euclidia, she's wearing these glasses that are shaped like isosceles triangles.
That detail is just brilliant. It immediately tells you everything you need to know about who she is. She is sharp, she is angular, she's rigid.
She represents the Euclidean worldview. Now, for any of you listening who haven't touched a geometry textbook in, say, 20 years, we should probably clarify what that actually means.
Yeah, good idea.
Euclidean geometry is the standard stuff we all learned in school.
Yeah.
Space is flat. parallel lines never meet. The angles of a triangle always add up to exactly 180 degrees. It's the geometry of normalcy. It's predictable, the rules are set in stone.
So when she tells them to sit down, she doesn't just say, have a seat. She says, let's triangulate the issue. She
Correct.
wants to pin it down. She wants to measure it. But this leads to the very first conflict, like right out of the gate.
Right.
The couch.
The couch, I mean, such a mundane object.
For Dave, yeah. Dave sits down immediately. The text says he's tired. He rubs his face. He just wants to sit. But Pi,
Pi freezes.
she just stops cold.
Yeah, Pi is staring at this couch cushion in, like, genuine horror. Because where Dave just sees a place to sit, Pi sees a hyperbolic paraboloid.
A hyperbolic paraboloid. Okay, I have to ask. I know we're not doing a math class here, but what does that actually look like?
So the easiest way to picture it is a Pringles chip.
Oh, okay.
Or a saddle. You know, a saddle curves up in one direction, like the front and back where the pommel is, but it curves down in the other direction where your legs go.
Right, the Pringles chip. I'm picturing it. So why is that scary? Why is a Pringle scary?
Because in calculus and geometry, the very center of that shape is called a saddle point. And it's this uniquely unstable place where you aren't really at a peak and you aren't really in a valley.
Okay.
If you put a little ball right there, it might balance for a split second, but the tiniest nudge sends it sliding off. Because of the way the curve is shaped, it doesn't just slide a little bit, it slides off infinitely.
So Pi looks at a simple couch cushion and sees a potential infinite slide into nothingness.
Exactly. And this is just the brilliant part of the writing here, right at the beginning. Pi says, if I sit, I might slide into an infinite saddle point. It establishes their entire worldview in one sentence. Pi sees the mathematical peril hidden inside everyday comfort. Pi sees the underlying structure of reality, and it is, frankly, terrifying.
And Dave?
Dave just sees a place to sit. He's rubbing his face, probably exhausted from the argument they had in the car on the way over. He just wants to sit down.
That dynamic is just so familiar. It's so real. One person is analyzing the existential implications of the furniture, and the other person is just tired.
It creates this immediate friction. And Dr. Euclidia, she clicks her pen, which is described as perfectly cylindrical, of course, and she tries to start the session. She asks them to define the problem space.
And this is where we really get into part one of our deep dives, the variables. We need to really define who these characters are because they're not just characters, they're archetypes.
They really are.
So let's start with the doctor. She's the strict traditionalist.
She is. She is the control group in this experiment. She represents society's expectation of how things are supposed to work, triangulate the issue, find the problem. She wants to put everything in a nice, neat box. She truly believes that if you can just measure something, you can fix it.
She is definitely that friend who gives you very practical but also very cold advice. You know, like, oh, you're sad. Have you tried making a spreadsheet about your feelings?
Oh, totally. Have you quantified your sadness on a scale of 1 to 10? That is 100% Dr. Euclidia.
Then we have Dave, the linear constant.
Dave. Oh, poor Dave. His complaint is so simple, so human. He just says, we're going in circles.
And he means it metaphorically, the way any of us would. You know, we're having the same old fights over and over. We aren't making any progress. He wants to move in a straight line, point A to point B.
He wants progress. He wants a timeline with milestones. He wants to check the box that says relationship fixed.
There's a line where he says, I like knowing when things stop. And that line just really stuck with me.
It's such a powerful admission, isn't it? Dave represents that fundamental human desire for closure. We like integers. We like whole numbers. We like movies to have a clear beginning, middle, and end. We like the workday to end at 5 o'clock. Dave functions on a 2D plane, an X and a Y axis. He's dependable, but he is also, limited by that deep, deep need for termination.
He's the checklist personality. I did the thing, check. Now the thing is done. Why are we still talking about the thing?
Exactly. And then you have Pi,
a
transcendental variable.
Pi's reaction to being accused of going in circles is just hilarious. Pi immediately fires back. It's not a loop. It's a non-repeating spiral.
And that distinction is so crucial to understanding Pi's mind. A circle closes on itself. It repeats. If you walk in a circle, you end up right back where you started. That is stagnation. That is exactly what Dave fears.
The spiral.
A spiral goes around, sure, but it also moves outward or upward or inward. It never actually touches the same point twice.
So Pi argues that what Dave sees as repetition, Pi sees as expansion, as discovering new digits, new truths.
Right, because Pi, the number, is both irrational and transcendental.
Okay, we should probably define transcendental here because it sounds really spiritual or philosophical, but it's an actual math term.
It is. In mathematics, a transcendental number is a real number that is not the root of any non-zero polynomial equation with rational coefficients.
Okay, now pretend I didn't take advanced algebra. What does that actually mean for Pi's personality?
It means pi cannot be pinned down by simple, neat algebraic formulas. You can't just write a simple equation like 2x plus 1 equals 0 and get pi as the answer.
So Pi exists outside of those rigid structures.
Exactly. Pi is wild, untamable. It goes on forever and ever without any repeating pattern. It's pure, infinite, chaotic information.
So when we apply that to the character of Pi, Pi represents the person who values truth over comfort.
Yes. There's a fantastic line in the text where Pi says something like, the truth doesn't just say, okay, that's close enough, let's go to sleep. The truth goes on for 1 trillion decimal places.
And that is the absolute crux of their conflict. Dave wants to go to sleep. Pi wants to find the next decimal place. And the thing is, neither of them is really wrong.
No, not at all. But they are operating on completely different operating systems. It reminds me of that feeling when you're arguing with someone late at night and one person just wants to go to bed to resolve the immediate tension and the other person feels like if we go to bed now, we're basically living a lie because we haven't figured out the absolute root cause of the problem.
Yes, the we can't go to sleep on an argument versus the we can't possibly resolve this while we're this tired.
That is exactly the Dave and Pi dynamic, the finite versus the infinite.
So we have our characters defined. Now let's look at part 2, the equation of conflict. Because Dr. Euclidia, she tries to diagnose this, and the puns just start flying.
They really do. But what's clever is they aren't just puns for the sake of being puns. They're actually her diagnostic tools. Dr. Euclidia suggests Dave finds the relationship nonlinear, and then she asks if Dave is being obtuse.
And for anyone who forgot high school geometry, an obtuse angle is one that's greater than 90 degrees. It's sort of blunt, not sharp, but, it also means stupid or insensitive.
Right. But Pi immediately jumps in to correct her. Pi says Dave isn't being obtuse, he's being acutely restrictive.
Acute, meaning an angle that's less than 90 degrees. Sharp, narrow.
And in this context, it implies he's being narrow-minded. I just love how the text uses this wordplay. They are literally using the language of geometric angles to describe emotional openness or the lack of it. Dave is acute. He has a very narrow, very tight tolerance for chaos. He wants things controlled.
Let's get into the specific case studies they bring up in the therapy session, because these are just pure gold. Case study A, the movie theater incident.
Oh, it's such a classic relationship fight. Punctuality.
They missed a movie on Friday. From Dave's perspective, it's incredibly simple. Pi was late, cause and effect. You weren't there on time, so we missed the previews. And now the whole night is ruined.
But Pi's perspective, it's completely different. Pi claims they were busy calculating the optimal viewing angle relative to the screen width.
Pi was worried that if they sat too far to the left, the trapezoidal distortion of the image would ruin the director's intended cinematography.
This is so fascinating because it completely redefines the word rationality. To Dave, being rational means being on time. The movie starts at 7 o'clock, you arrive at 6:50. That's logical. It's how society functions.
Right. But to Pi?
To Pi, rationality is geometric perfection. What is the point of being on time if the viewing angle is suboptimal? If you sit on the far side, the image is compressed and distorted.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the artist's true vision. To Pi, sitting in a bad seat is the irrational act.
So Pi is technically correct. Distortion is a real thing that happens at the edges of a movie screen, but Dave is, socially correct.
It's the practical versus the theoretical. Dave wants to see the movie. Pi wants to solve the movie theater.
Yes, that's it, exactly. And then you have case study B, the parking garage.
Oh, this one just killed me. Dave accuses Pi of constantly going off on tangents.
Which is a word we use all the time, right? Sorry, I went on a tangent.
But geometrically, a tangent is a line that touches a curve at a single point and then just shoots off into space forever. It literally moves away from the core issue.
And Pi actually defends this. Pi argues that, no, Pi doesn't go on tangents. Pi stays connected to the core issue. But the reality, Pi had just given a 20-minute lecture on load-bearing arches and the structural stability of the parking garage they were trying to park in.
I mean, can you imagine the absolute exhaustion of dating infinity? You're just trying to park the car so you can go to your therapy appointment, which you are probably already late for. You're stressed.
Yeah.
And your partner is giving you a lecture on the physics holding the building up.
Dave just wants to find a parking spot. Pi sees the invisible forces holding the concrete above their heads.
It just perfectly highlights the burden of Pi's mind. Pi can't unsee the geometry in the world. Pi can't just ignore the engineering of the arches. To Pi, that isn't a tangent. It's the fundamental reality of where they are standing. But to Dave, it's noise. It's irrelevant.
So Dr. Euclidia listens to all of this, the movie theater, the parking garage, the arguments, and she comes up with a diagnosis. And honestly, this is where it starts to get a little dark.
It does. The tone shifts here from kind of funny and quirky to something really profound.
She calls it a problem of intersecting planes.
Right. She identifies what she calls a dimensional mismatch. She says Dave is strictly 2D, he's flat, he's dependable.
Which, by the way, Dave immediately takes as an insult. Hey, I'm not flat.
Of course he does. But in this context, he is. He's the paper we write the equation on. Pi, on the other hand, operates in n-dimensional space.
N-dimensional space.
Which means an unspecified, potentially infinite number of dimensions. You just cannot pin Pi down.
And Pi loves this description. The text says Pi just beams and says, you can't square the circle. It's an ancient impossibility.
Which is a real mathematical concept. Squaring the circle is the challenge of constructing a square that has the exact same area as a given circle, but you can only use a compass and a straight edge. It was proven to be impossible in 1882, specifically because Pi is a transcendental number.
So Pi is basically bragging, I am unsolvable.
Exactly. Pi wears that complexity like a badge of honor. But then Dr. Euclidia drops the hammer. She gives them a warning. She warns them about the danger of becoming skew lines.
Skew lines. I remember this from the outline. The loneliest geometry.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, most people know what parallel lines are, right? They're lines that run side by side forever but never meet. But they share a direction. They share a slope. There is a relationship there. They're on the same journey, just on different paths.
And obviously, intersecting lines meet. They have a point in common.
But skew lines.
Yeah.
Skew lines can only exist in 3 dimensions or more. They're lines that are not parallel, but they also never, ever intersect.
How does that work?
Imagine one line is a road on the ground going north, and the other line is a bridge passing 100 feet above it going east. They aren't parallel, but they will never touch. They drift past each other in the void.
Wow. That's heart-wrenching.
It is the ultimate definition of disconnection. You're not even fighting anymore. You're not even walking along the same path anymore. You are just 2 separate entities existing in completely different realities that will never, ever touch.
And you can tell it hits both of them hard. The text says, Pi whispers, that's the loneliest geometry. And suddenly, it's not about puns anymore. It's about this deep, primal fear that they simply cannot reach each other.
This is the emotional anchor of the whole story. It moves from clever wordplay to this genuine fear of total, complete disconnection.
So Dr. Euclidia doesn't just leave them with this terrifying diagnosis. She offers a solution, a transformation, she calls it. This leads us to part 4. What is the prescription for a relationship between a straight line and an infinite spiral?
Well, she gives them each a specific mathematical task, a new way of thinking. For Dave, his prescription is approximation.
Approximation.
Right. Dave demands what he calls absolute zero. He wants precision. He wants exactness. He wants the dinner reservation to be at exactly 7. He wants the check to be split perfectly down to the penny. But you cannot get perfect exactness from an irrational number. It's impossible. If you tried to write down Pi exactly, you would die before you finished. The entire universe would end before you finished.
So he has to learn to accept a margin of error.
Yes. The doctor tells him that dinner isn't at 7.00 sharp anymore. It's sometime between 7.0 and 7.59.
And Pi, of course, has to add and 7.59.999, just to push his buttons a little.
But the lesson there for all of us is about tolerance. Loving someone who is infinite, someone who is creative or chaotic or just deeply complex. It means you have to accept that things won't always line up perfectly on the grid. You have to learn to love the approximation of the plan, not the plan itself.
That's really good advice. And Dave, to his credit, he agrees. He says he'll try to enjoy the curve a little more, to not ask for the bottom line every single time.
And that's his growth. That's him stepping out of his linear 2D comfort zone.
But Pi has to do something too. And this part kind of blew my mind a little. She introduces the concept of the limit.
Ah, yes. She brings calculus into therapy.
Pi literally recoils at the word, a limit, like calculus.
Because to a free spirit like Pi, a limit sounds like a cage.
Yeah.
It sounds like a restriction on infinity. But Dr. Euclidia explains it so beautifully. She says, you can be infinite on the inside, but as 2 approaches bedtime, You must approach a limit.
You have to converge.
You have to converge. In calculus, a limit is what allows you to deal with the infinite in a practical, usable way. You can have a series of numbers that goes on forever and ever, but as it goes on, it gets closer and closer and closer to one specific value. It might never technically touch it, but for all functional purposes, it lands there.
Can you give us like a simple example?
Sure, think of Zeno's paradox. You want to walk to a wall. First, you walk halfway there. Then you walk half of the remaining distance, then half of that. Mathematically, you take an infinite number of steps and you never technically touch the wall. But in reality,
You hit the wall.
you hit the wall. You converge. So she's telling Pi, you don't have to change your soul. You don't have to stop being infinite on the inside. But your output, your actions in the real world, they need to have a boundary.
This is so profound. It validates Pi's nature. I know you are infinite. I see that. While at the same time protecting Dave's sanity. It's the ultimate compromise of adulthood. You can have infinite thoughts, but you still have to pay the bills on time. You can have infinite feelings, but you still need to go to sleep.
As it approaches bedtime, I'm definitely going to start using that.
Me too.
It's the most powerful point in the entire text. A limit allows something to be infinite mathematically while still having a functional, workable boundary in reality.
So they have the theory. They have their assignments. Now they have to test it. Part 5. The payment dispute.
Right. The session ends, and reality comes crashing back in.
The bill is $150, and Dave, being Dave, immediately reaches for his wallet. He's ready to pay. Transaction complete. He loves this moment. 150 is such a clean, beautiful integer.
But Pi is instantly suspicious.
$150 flat, no tax, no processing fee. Panda cannot handle the simplicity of the round number.
Because to Pi, a perfectly round number is a lie. Nature doesn't do round numbers. Trees don't grow in perfect cylinders. Rivers don't flow in straight lines. So Pi pulls out a calculator. Pi starts trying to factor in the office overhead versus the time allotted for the session. Pi is desperately looking for the hidden decimal places.
This is the relapse. This is Pi sliding right back into that infinite saddle point. You can just feel it. Pi is about to turn a simple payment into a 40-minute lecture on microeconomics.
And Dr. Euclidia just defends it with this icy smile, saying, it's a round number, which only makes it worse. Pi is just spiraling. You can see the panic. The truth is being obscured by a clean integer.
And then Dave steps in. And he doesn't yell. He doesn't say, just stop it. He uses the trigger word they learned.
He says, Pi, converge.
That moment just feels so cinematic. The text says the calculator just hovers in midair. Pi freezes.
It's a moment of pure choice. Pi is looking at the calculator, which represents absolute truth, raw data, the infinite expansion of accuracy. And then Pi looks over at Dave, who represents connection, love, and, sanity.
And Pi chooses Dave.
I chooses Dave. Pi puts the calculator away and says, fine, we will pay the integer.
We will pay the integer. What a sentence. It's an admission of defeat in one sense, but it's also this huge act of love. Pi consciously chooses the health of the relationship over the purity of the raw data.
That is the breakthrough. That's the theory being put into practice.
So let's head to the outro. They're walking out of the office. Dave puts his arm around Pi.
And Pi, being Pi, just has to get one last little dig in. Pi mutters. She was totally biased. Do you see her glasses? Totally Euclidean.
She doesn't understand non-Euclidean emotional geometry. I love that Pi holds on to that core identity right to the very end.
Of course, but the interaction that follows is it's really sweet. Dave says very simply, I love you, Pi.
And Pi's response is perfect. I love you too, Dave. Approximately 3.14 times more than I did yesterday.
And Dave's response is everything. He just smiles and says, I'll take it.
It's the perfect summary of the entire lesson. I'll take it. He accepts the approximation. He accepts the weird, nerdy math joke as a genuine expression of affection.
And Pi expressed love quantitatively, which is true to Pi's nature, but used in approximation. They both learned the lesson. They met in the middle.
So what does this all mean for us, for the listeners who aren't, dating mathematical constants?
I think it comes right back to that idea of order versus chaos, or maybe strictness versus chaos. So many relationships, whether they're romantic, platonic, or even professional, they often consist of one person who is the Dave and one person who is a Pi.
The person who just wants to park the car versus the person who wants to discuss the architecture of the garage.
Right. And the goal isn't to make the Dave act like a Pi or to force the Pi to act like a Dave. If you try to make Dave infinite, he'll just have a complete breakdown. And if you force Pi to be finite, they lose their spark, the very thing that makes them special.
The goal is limits and margins of error.
It's applying those mathematical concepts to our emotional lives. Give your partner a margin of error, let them be 5 minutes late, let them be a little messy, and conversely, apply limits to yourself. Know when to converge for the sake of the other person.
Even if you feel like you're on a tangent and what you're saying is important and true, sometimes you have to converge just because you love someone.
And do whatever you have to do to avoid becoming skew lines. Find that common denominator, that shared plane of existence, even if it's just an approximation of what you both want.
I love that. Well, this has been a really fascinating look at the geometry of love. I'm definitely going to be looking at my couch cushions a little differently from now on.
Yeah, watch out for those saddle points.
Exactly. Thanks for listening, everyone. Go find your limit, check your angles, and we will catch you in the next deep dive.
Take care.
Oh, hit the like button and subscribe. And hit that damn bell.